Hi everyone, Julie here. Today I'm outside. I've actually come to a dog park, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through shutter speed mode on your camera, or TS, or whatever it is depending on your camera, and some dogs in action. So I've got my friend Harvey over there all rearing to go, and I'll show you him in a minute. And I just thought I'd go through some camera settings first. So I've got my camera here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on shutter speed or shutter priority, and I'm going to put my shutter speed up to around, let's try 1/1000th, and it's saying that it's quite dark where we are. Plus I've also got my lens cap on, so if I take that off it might lighten up a little bit. So I've got my aperture currently on 6.3, which isn't too bad. I've also gone in, I have got my set to animal mode. Okay, so I've got it on animal mode. I've also got it on flexible wide focus. I have also got it on, I've got it on low speed, but I could put this up to mid or high speed depending on how fast Harvey gets up today. And I'm going to see how we go from there. So I'm going to show you I'm going to take some photos and some video, and I'm going to have it on high speed and low speed so that you can see the difference. If you want to get creative blur, you need to put your shutter speed down low, but if you want to capture the action, then you will need to put it on something quite a bit higher, so a minimum of 1/1000th of a second. So let's go over and we'll catch some shots of Harvey in action. Yeah, you don't want it? Num nums?
Yum.
Yum yums.
Just yum.
Yum?
So I took some video of Harvey in action, and he can really get up to speed when he wants to. By now he'd already started to slow down a little bit. So we had Harvey repeat this over and over where he was running to catch a ball. I did it at several different shutter speeds, from 1/100th to 1/1000th to 1/3200th of a second, and I'll show you those photos in a little bit. And then we had him playing with his herding ball, which is this. So we had him running around with that for quite a while, and he was having loads of fun with that. Okay, so here are just some of the images that I wanted to go through. So I've got the settings up here. So I started off at f13, ISO 200 and 1/1000th of a second. And look, it's not bad, it's pretty good, it's fairly sharp and all the rest of it, but I think we could have done better. So Harvey was just getting into his groove and I was getting into mine, so I wanted to catch some action shots, and there's some really good shots here of that I'm sure his owner will love. But when I zoom in, the focus isn't brilliant, but they're still pretty good shots. We sort of got some in action. Again, here's another one I wanted to show you. So this one is zoomed in a bit and it's still at 1/1000th of a second. I was shooting with my 70 to 180mm lens, and when I've zoomed all the way in, the focus just isn't fantastic at 1/1000th of a second. So you really do need to have your shutter speed above that. That is probably the absolute lowest you would want your shutter speed. So again, some more shots of him. I got some pretty good jump shots, and it looks okay. It's not really horrible, but again, I think we can do better. And when you've got a dog that can move so quick, and Harvey is a red heeler, which is an Australian cattle dog, and these are working dogs, and these guys can really get up to speed and can jump quite high as well. So here's another shot of him jumping. Is off the ground completely, but the focus still isn't great. And a couple more shots. So these are still at 1/1000th of a second. This is at f11. It was quite bright and sunny. Now here I jumped up to 1/3200th of a second, and when this loads, that is crystal clear and sharp. I could probably even tell you what the phone number is. Every detail on him is crystal clear. Yes, the grass is in a little bit of blur, but I'm not fazed by that. I was after shots of Harvey in perfect focus, and they're great. So this is at 1/3200th of a second. The aperture is at 7.1 and the ISO is at 200. Here are some more shots of him. This is still all at 3200, and if I zoom in, have a look at him. He looks like he's having an absolute ball going for that ball. He was having so much fun. And again, at 3200, I really was getting some action shots. And I'll put some of these up once. These are completely unedited. I've brightened them up a little bit, but yeah, another really good shot of Harvey and the ball, which are in focus. So now if I just scroll through some of these, and I'll show you the difference that a shutter speed can make. Now, I dropped it down to 1/125th of a second. If you're shooting models or something like that, then this is a perfectly fine shutter speed for a 50mm lens or something like that. But because I was shooting on a zoom lens and I was shooting something that was moving quite quickly, this just isn't going to cut it. Generally speaking, they say you should, on a zoom lens, have your shutter speed at least 2 to 2.5 times the length of your lens. So I was shooting at 180mm, so I should have my shutter speed minimum of 1/360 or 1/400th of a second. Even at 1/1000, it still wasn't quite sharp enough for Harvey's movement. So shooting at 1/125 is not cutting it at all. And I have so many fabulously blurred images that were just a bit too bright as well, so I'm just going to bring that back. Sometimes it pays to set your everything up on your camera before you get into it. Now, have a look at this. This would have been an absolute fantastic shot of Harvey in action. He's off the ground, he's got height, he's totally loving what he's doing. He's got the ball in his mouth and everything. But unfortunately, the shot is blurry because I had my camera set at 1/125. Now, I did this on purpose, but if I had walked into there, because I usually would have my camera on about 1/125, because that's just a standard sort of shutter speed for me in the studio, and if I'd have taken these as client shots, I probably would have been heartbroken, and so would the client, and have to do a complete retake. So putting it up at least more than double, you need to have your shutter speed up high, and this is where using shutter priority can really be an advantage. You can set exactly what you want your shutter speed to be. So for instance, here I shot it at 1/3200th of a second. I had my ISO set to 200 and the camera just worked everything out on its own. These are much better shots. They're in focus. Yes, I can still crop in and zoom in and everything is in focus. These are fabulous shots that I would happily give to my client in this case. So here are just a couple more shots. So he was having so much fun chasing his hurting ball and the other ball. You can see the joy on his face. He was really enjoying this. Just a couple more shots. He was starting to slow down a bit now. And then he's off again. He probably would have done this for hours and hours, but we were out there for a bit over half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, and he was just running around. Again, I put the shutter speed, this time it's even slower, so it's on 1/100th of a second at f/22, and everything in this shot is blurry. Absolutely terrible. Unless you're after creative blur, these images just aren't usable. And back up again to 3/200th of a second. All crystal clear. Even though he was slowing down a bit by this stage because he was getting a bit tired, I still kept the shutter speed up high. It was bright, it was sunny, he was still moving, and I really wanted to get these shots in focus. I may come back and edit out his long lead, which was there. We were in an enclosed dog park, but that was still just there for safety reasons. But for the final images, I might just edit that out. So this is when Harvey's owner called him back, and have a look at him. He is tired. We really put him through his paces, so apparently he slept very well on the car ride home. He was having a wonderful time. So this is just him sitting there just politely when we were chatting just at the end of our session, still panting quite heavily. So thanks to Harvey and his owner, we had a fabulous time at the dog park. So I just wanted to bring this video together. It's not normally what I shoot. There's a lot of things that I could have done that I didn't. So some things that they say you really should do, like I should have been down low and shooting at his height, just because of my own physical abilities. I really couldn't move around as quickly as I needed to if I was on the ground, so I had to be standing up. I did crouch down it a few times, but because he was moving so fast, I had to be able to be maneuverable. If I had been shooting from outside of the fence, I probably could have gone down to his level. If I had been using a 300mm lens as opposed to a 180mm lens, I probably could have done that. So I guess my takeaway from this is switching from manual to shutter priority mode allows you to choose what shutter speed you want, and then the camera can do all the hard work. You don't have to worry about anything. You can shoot at aperture priority if aperture is going to be your priority, and I did a video about this already. But for this particular instance, I think shutter priority works better, because your priority on this is going to be how fast your shutter speed is to capture the action. I also had it on continuous focus, and I had it in animal tracking mode. So my camera was setting its focus point on Harvey, in particular on his eye, and it was tracking his focus. So all I had to do was pan and try and keep up with him, and the camera was focusing on Harvey and keeping all that in shot. I also had burst mode activated, so I had hundreds more shots than I've got here, but all I showed you was sort of like the pick of the crop, because I would start before like the ball was thrown or whatever, and I would shoot until after he caught it. So there were a lot of shots in there that weren't going to be usable or ones that I was going to keep, but being able to capture multiple frames in a second increases your chances of nailing and capturing the perfect shot. And just check your light. So here he was in the shadows, and I was doing a few shots in the shadows, but it was easier when I actually had him out in the bright light. So just check with your shadows and your lighting, especially if it's heavily shadowed. That can drop your lighting down, so even though your shutter speed might be up, it might make your images a bit dull or a bit dark. A couple of mistakes to avoid is a slow shutter speed, so that's going to lead to motion blur. Like I said, you need a minimum of 1/1000th of a second, but I actually found that 1/3200th of a second was actually working quite well in this. Don't forget your focus. So just because you're running around trying to get all these action shots, using continuous focus and setting the focus point with animal tracking is a really good idea. Watch for your lighting. And look, they say shoot from eye level of the dog, but that's not always possible. If you can get down to their level and shoot, then that's great. But if you need to be up higher and shooting down, especially if the dogs are jumping, if you're on the ground and the dogs are jumping up higher, then you may actually get them jumping out of your shot. But so that's just something to be aware of. Dogs and kids, all animals, can be unpredictable, so try and anticipate their movements by observing their behavior and prepare for things like, you know, their jumping or their action shots or chasing the ball, or even just when they're in resting mode, and you can capture some really cute and playful moments. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. It's something a little bit out of the box for me. It's not something I normally do, but it was loads of fun capturing some fabulous shots of Harvey in action at the dog park. So I'll put the link to the manual versus aperture priority in the description. I'm going to write a blog post on this with a bit more information, so I will also link that in the description below as well. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time on the channel.